Now, what if I told you that most narcissists walk around completely clueless about who they really are? But some of them, and this is the scary part, some of them know exactly what they're doing to you and just don't give a damn. You heard me right. You're dealing with someone who either has zero self-awareness or complete self-awareness, and I'm going to tell you which one is more dangerous. This isn't simple, folks. Narcissists are not a monolith when it comes to self-knowledge. You can't just paint them all with the same brush. Understanding whether the narcissist in your life, your boss, your partner, your parent, knows what they're doing changes everything about how you protect yourself. It changes the game. So you need to listen up because this information could be the key to getting your life back. Let's lay a little groundwork here. In psychology, we talk about behaviors being either ego-syntonic or ego-dystonic. That's just a fancy way of saying some behaviors feel right to you and some feel wrong. Listen, when someone's behavior aligns with who they think they are, when it feels natural and justified to them, they don't see a problem. That's ego-syntonic. Their manipulative, arrogant, selfish behavior feels as normal to them as breathing. They think, this is just who I am. This is how the world works. They aren't sitting around thinking, gosh, I'm being manipulative today. No, they're thinking, I'm being smart. I'm being reasonable. I'm just getting what I deserve. On the flip side, you have ego-dystonic behavior. This is when your actions clash with your self-image. It's that nagging feeling you get when you know you've done something wrong. It's guilt. It's shame. It's that voice in your head that says, that wasn't right. I shouldn't have done that. Most people feel this. It's what prompts us to apologize, to make amends, to try to be better. The narcissist. That voice is either on mute or it's been kicked out of the building entirely. For the vast majority of them, their narcissism is completely 100% ego-syntonic. They don't think they have a problem. They think you have a problem for not seeing how great they are. I've got to tell you, I've seen it all in my 45 years of doing this. I once had a guy in my office, a high-powered executive, sharp as a tack, charming as all get out. His wife dragged him in for counseling, and in a moment of what I thought was a breakthrough, he looked at me and said, with no hint of shame, yeah, I'm a narcissist. So what? It's working for me. I'm at the top of my game. I have the respect of my peers. I get what I want. He wore it like a badge of honor. He wasn't clueless, he was defiant. He saw his narcissism as a toolkit for success, not a disorder. He knew he was manipulative, he knew he lacked empathy, but he saw those things as strengths, not weaknesses. To him, empathy was for suckers. Caring was for the weak. It was a chilling, stark reminder that sometimes they absolutely do know. And that's the paradox we're wrestling with today. You've got the clueless ones living in a fantasy world where they are the hero of their own story, genuinely baffled when people get upset with them. Then you've got the calculating ones who see their narcissism as a strategic advantage in the game of life. They know they hurt people, and they've simply decided it's an acceptable cost of doing business. So I want to hear from you. Get in the comments below and tell me your story. Have you ever called someone out for being narcissistic? What was their reaction? Did they deny it, get defensive, start screaming, and turn it all back on you? Or did they do the unthinkable and actually admit it? What happened next? Your stories are important, not just for me, but for the thousands of others reading this who are in the same boat, feeling alone and confused. So buckle up because we're going to break this down. We're going to look at what they know, what they don't know, and most importantly, what that means for you. Because when you're in the trenches with a narcissist, understanding the enemy is the first step to winning the war for your own sanity. All right, let's get right into it. Last time we talked about the big overarching question, do they know? Now, I want you to meet the most common type of narcissist you're going to run into. This is the one who genuinely, down to their core, believes they are God's gift to humanity and has absolutely no idea why everyone else doesn't see it. This is the clueless narcissist, and they are living in a fantasy world of their own creation with them starring in the lead role. Remember what we talked about last time. Egosyntonic. It's a $50 word, but the concept is simple. It means their behavior, their worldview, their entire way of being feels completely normal and right to them. They aren't sitting around a table plotting their next manipulative move like some cartoon villain. They're not thinking, I'm being manipulative. They're thinking, I'm being reasonable. They think, I'm just explaining things logically. They think, I'm just helping you see the situation correctly. Their reality is so warped that their selfishness feels like self-care, their arrogance feels like confidence, and their cruelty feels like honesty. Think about it like this. It's like trying to explain the color red to someone who was born colorblind. They can't see what they can't see. You can describe it, you can get frustrated, you can show them 1,000 red objects, but they lack the fundamental wiring to perceive it. The clueless narcissist lacks the fundamental wiring for self-awareness. Their disorder is their normal. They are so insulated by their own ego that the truth can't get in. They have built a fortress of self-delusion, and they are the king of a castle that no one else can see. Now, how do they maintain this fantasy? How do they walk through life causing chaos and pain and still see a hero in the mirror every morning? They do it with a powerful set of psychological tools we call defense mechanisms. And trust me, they are masters at using them. Let's talk about gaslighting. You've all heard the term. It's when someone makes you doubt your own sanity, your own memory, your own perception of reality. But here's what you have to understand about the clueless narcissist. When they gaslight you, they aren't necessarily lying in the way you and I think of lying. They have so thoroughly rewritten reality in their own minds that they genuinely believe their version of events. When they tell you, that never happened, or you're remembering it wrong, or you're being too sensitive, they believe it. They have an ironclad conviction that their perception is the only one that matters, the only one that's real. You're not just arguing with a person, you're arguing with their entire psychological survival system. And you're not going to win. Then there's projection. This is a big one. Projection is when they take their own unacceptable qualities, their selfishness, their insecurity, their dishonesty, and pin them on you. When a narcissist calls you selfish, it's because they are incapable of seeing their own profound selfishness. They are projecting their own garbage onto you so they don't have to deal with it. They look at their reflection, see all the flaws, and instead of admitting they exist, they claim the mirror is broken. They make you the problem so they can remain perfect in their own eyes. It's a neat little trick, and it's devastatingly effective at confusing and wounding the people around them. Underpinning all of this is the core deficit, the engine of their cluelessness, a complete and utter lack of empathy. Remember what I told you about empathy? It's the ability to stand in someone else's shoes and feel what they're feeling. The narcissist doesn't have it. That hardware is missing. You cannot be aware of the impact of your actions if you cannot feel what other people feel. You can't understand why someone is hurt if you can't emotionally connect to their pain. They see your tears, they hear your words, but it's like watching a movie in a foreign language with no subtitles. They see the emotion, but they don't comprehend the meaning. They will miss emotional cues, say the most hurtful thing at the worst possible time, and then be genuinely baffled as to why you're upset. Let me give you a couple of real-world examples. Think about the boss who sets impossible deadlines, demands you work through the weekend, and offers zero support. In their mind, they aren't being a tyrant. They genuinely believe they are being motivational. They think they are pushing you to be your best. They cannot compute that they are causing burnout, anxiety, and resentment because they can only see the world through the lens of their own ambition. Or think about the parent who criticizes every single thing their child does, their clothes, their friends, their grades, their career choices. This parent isn't thinking, I am slowly crushing my child's spirit. No, they believe with all their heart that they are helping. They think their constant criticism is a form of guidance, a way to help their child improve and avoid mistakes. They can't feel the sting of their words, so they have no idea the damage they're inflicting. They see themselves as a dedicated, caring parent, while their child feels like they can never, ever be good enough. So you ask, if their lives are so dysfunctional, why don't they get help? Why don't they go to therapy? Well, let me ask you this. If you don't think you're broken, why would you try to fix yourself? If you genuinely believe that every problem in your life is somebody else's fault, your spouse is too sensitive, your boss is an idiot, your kids are ungrateful, then what is there to work on? They don't see a problem with themselves. They see a world full of flawed people who just don't appreciate their brilliance. Going to therapy would mean admitting imperfection, and for the narcissist, that is a fate worse than death. Their entire identity is built on a foundation of superiority. Admitting they need help would bring the whole house of cards crashing down. This is the world of the clueless narcissist. It's a lonely, distorted reality where they are the perpetual hero and the perpetual victim, but never ever the problem. They are prisoners of their own minds. But here's where it gets interesting and a whole lot scarier. Some narcissists aren't clueless at all. Some of them do know. They've seen behind the curtain and they've made a conscious choice. And that, my friends, is a whole different animal. We'll talk about that next. All right, we've just walked through the fantasy world of the clueless narcissist. The one who is so insulated by their own ego they have no idea the kind of damage they're causing. Now, I need you to put that image aside. I'm going to tell you about a different breed entirely. This is the narcissist who looks in the mirror, sees every flaw, every sharp edge, every toxic trait, and says, yeah, that's me. And I'd rather be admired than liked. I'd rather be feared than loved. This is the self-aware narcissist, the one who knows exactly who they are and simply does not care. You might be thinking, come on, Dr. Phil, do people like that really exist? Let me tell you, not only do they exist, but the research backs it up. Study after study has shown that when you give narcissists a questionnaire, they are surprisingly honest. They will readily admit to being arrogant. They will check the box that says they are manipulative. They know they exploit people to get ahead. They know they are vain and attention-seeking. They see these traits in themselves as clearly as you do. But here's the kicker, the part that's so hard for empathetic, caring people to wrap their heads around. They don't see these traits as negative. They see them as necessary tools for survival in a dog-eat-dog world. They've done a cost-benefit analysis in their head, and the conclusion is simple. They're thinking, sure, people might not like me after a while. Sure, I might burn a few bridges. But I get what I want. I get the promotion. I get the partner. I get the money. I win. For them, the benefits of their narcissism, the power, the admiration, the success far outweigh the costs of leaving a trail of hurt feelings in their wake. Your feelings are just collateral damage in their quest for glory. So how do they sleep at night? How do they justify a life of using and abusing others? They do it with a simple, chilling philosophy: everyone else is weak. They look at the world and they see a bunch of suckers, a world full of sheep waiting to be led. In their minds, empathy is a weakness. Compassion is a liability. Guilt is a useless emotion that just slows you down. They believe that caring about other people is for fools. They've convinced themselves that they are superior, not in spite of their lack of empathy, but because of it. They believe they see the world more clearly than the rest of us, unburdened by silly emotions and moral codes. It's not that they can't see the impact of their behavior. Oh, they see it. They see your tears. They hear you when you tell them they've hurt you. They register the pain on your face. They just don't care. It doesn't connect with them on an emotional level. It's like watching a sad scene in a movie. They might intellectually understand that a character is suffering, but they don't feel it themselves. Your pain is just information to them, and often it's information they can use. And that brings us to the manipulation advantage. This is what makes the self-aware narcissist so incredibly dangerous. Unlike the clueless narcissist who is just bumbling through life in their own self-absorbed fog, the self-aware narcissist is a student of human behavior. They use their knowledge of their own personality to become more effective manipulators. They know they're charming, so they dial it up to get what they want. They know they can be intimidating, so they use anger and aggression as a calculated tool. They have studied your reactions. They know exactly which buttons to push to make you feel guilty, to make you doubt yourself, to get you to back down. They are playing chess while you're playing checkers, and they're using their own personality disorder as their queen. You see these people everywhere, especially in high-stakes environments. Think of the ruthless CEO who openly admits to being cutthroat, but just calls it good business. He knows he's crushing his competitors and overworking his employees, but he justifies it with profit margins and shareholder value. He's not losing sleep over it, he's celebrating it. Or think of the partner who is in the middle of a fight, looks you dead in the eye and says, "This is who I am. I'm not going to change. Take it or leave it." That's not a cry for help. That is a declaration. It's them telling you that they are fully aware of their behavior and have no intention of changing because on some level it works for them. They are putting the responsibility squarely on your shoulders. Either you tolerate their abuse or you leave. The choice is yours, but they are not going to change. Here's why this type is often more dangerous than the clueless one. At least with the clueless narcissist, you're dealing with someone who's unconscious, someone trapped in a psychological prison they don't even know exists. You might feel frustration, you might feel anger, but you might also feel a sliver of pity for them. But the self-aware narcissist, this one is calculating, this one is making a choice. They are consciously choosing to inflict pain, to manipulate, to exploit. There is a malice aforethought that is terrifying. They are not just broken, they are actively using their brokenness as a weapon. Dealing with someone who knows they are a narcissist and embraces it as a losing game, you can't appeal to their better nature because they believe their current nature is their best one. You can't make them see the light because they think they're already standing in it. But hold on, because it gets even more complicated. There's a third category, a murky, chaotic middle ground that's even more complex. The ones who know on some deep, buried level that something is wrong, but they are in complete and utter denial about it. And their denial can be the most destructive force of all. We're going to dive into that next. All right, let's talk about the walking contradiction, the psychological powder keg. We've talked about the narcissist who doesn't know and the narcissist who knows and doesn't care. But now we're wading into the murkiest, most volatile territory of all the defensive narcissists. Have you ever been there? You're in a conversation and you gently, carefully try to point out a behavior. You say something like, "When you said that, it made me feel," and before you can even finish, they explode. The rage, the denial, the accusations. It's a tidal wave of defensiveness that leaves you stunned and reeling. Have you ever watched someone get more and more defensive, more and more agitated the closer you get to the truth? That's not a sign that you're wrong. That's a sign that you've hit a nerve. That's because somewhere deep inside, in a place they keep locked and barricaded, they know you're right. This is the narcissist caught in a brutal internal conflict. On one hand, their entire identity, their very sense of self, is built on a fantasy of perfection and superiority. It's a magnificent, towering house of cards, and it's beautiful to look at from their perspective. But it's fragile. On the other hand, deep down, they have a sliver of awareness. They know something is wrong. They've seen the pattern of broken relationships, the hurt in people's eyes, the consistent feedback that their behavior is damaging. But here's the problem. For them to admit that you're right, to admit they have these deep narcissistic flaws, would be to take a sledgehammer to the foundation of that house of cards. The whole thing would come tumbling down. And that is a terrifying, unthinkable prospect. Admitting they are flawed doesn't just mean they made a mistake. It means their entire identity is a lie. So they fight. They fight you. They fight the truth. They fight their own buried self-awareness with everything they've got. And how do they fight? With defense mechanisms on steroids. When you call them out, you're not just criticizing a behavior, You are threatening their psychological survival. So they don't just disagree with you, they attack you. That rage reaction you see, that's not just anger, that's panic. You've poked a sleeping bear and it has come out roaring to protect its fragile ego. This is where you see the classic Darvio response. If you're dealing with a narcissist, you need to burn this acronym into your brain. It stands for deny, attack, and reverse victim and offender. It's a 3-step dance of crazy making. First, they deny the behavior. I never said that. That's not what happened. Then they attack you for even bringing it up. You're crazy. You're too sensitive. Who are you to judge me? And finally, in a stunning feat of psychological jujitsu, they reverse victim and offender. Suddenly, they are the victim of your unfair accusations. You are the abuser for daring to criticize them. You walk away feeling guilty and confused, wondering if maybe you are the one with the problem. That's Darvo, and it's the defensive narcissist signature move. Now, sometimes these people end up in therapy, usually because they've been given an ultimatum by a spouse or a boss. And you might think, finally, a breakthrough. Don't pop the champagne yet. This is what I call the therapy trap. More often than not, the defensive narcissist doesn't go to therapy to change. They go to get better at manipulation. They're not there to learn empathy. They're there to learn how to fake it more convincingly. They learn the language of therapy. I'm working on my boundaries. I'm processing my trauma. I'm trying to communicate better. And they weaponize it. I've seen it in group therapy sessions where a narcissist will listen intently to others share their vulnerabilities, not to connect, but to gather intelligence. They use therapy as a training ground to become a more sophisticated manipulator. You'll also see the partial admission. This is a clever way they can appear reasonable while still maintaining their superiority. They'll say things like, okay, maybe I have some narcissistic traits, but who doesn't? Everyone's a little bit selfish. Or, yeah, I can be arrogant sometimes, but you have to be in this world to get ahead. You see what they're doing. They minimize the behavior by normalizing it, taking it from a serious character flaw, and turning it into a common, even necessary trait. It's a way of saying, I'm not the problem, the world is the problem. You see this all the time in families. It's the parent who knows on some level that they are far too critical of their child. But when confronted, they don't say, you're right, I'm sorry. They say, I'm only hard on you because I love you. You're just too sensitive. The blame gets shifted from their toxic behavior to the child's reaction. Or it's the spouse who knows they are controlling but calls it caring. They say, I only check your phone because I worry about you. They reframe their violation of your privacy as an act of love. This is why dealing with a defensive narcissist is so profoundly chaotic. You're dealing with someone who is at war with themselves, and you are the battlefield. You get caught in a dizzying push-pull dynamic. You might have a moment of what feels like clarity, where they almost seem to get it, followed by a furious wave of denial that leaves you questioning your own reality. These glimpses of self-awareness give you a false sense of hope that change is possible, and that hope is what keeps you stuck. So what happens when you decide you've had enough? What happens when you're the one trying to hold up the mirror and make them see the truth? Well, that's a confrontation, and with a narcissist, that's a trap. And we're going to talk all about it in the next. All right? I want you to listen to me and listen to me good, because what I'm about to tell you could save you from a world of hurt. It goes against every instinct you have as a caring, rational person. You've done the research, you've read the articles, you've watched the videos, and the light bulb has gone off. You finally have a name for the crazy, making behavior that has been turning your life upside down. And you think to yourself, if I can just make them see it, if I can just explain it to them, maybe we can fix this. So you plan it all out. You gather your courage, you sit them down, you take a deep breath, and you say the words, I think you might be a narcissist. Let me tell you what happens next and why you should never, ever do it. You think you're walking into a reasonable conversation. You're not. You're walking into a psychological war zone and you've just handed the enemy a live grenade, the reaction is as predictable as the sun coming up. You will be met with an immediate, explosive, and overwhelming counterattack. You see, you think you're offering a diagnosis, a potential explanation for all the pain and conflict. You think you're saying, you might have a personality disorder that we can address, but that is not what they hear. They don't hear personality disorder. They hear you are a bad, broken, and fundamentally terrible person. You are not offering a key to understanding. You are launching a direct assault on the very core of their identity. And what's their first line of defense? Denial and projection. They will immediately deny everything. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. You're the one with the problem, not me. You're just trying to find something to blame me for. They will take the accusation you just leveled at them, turn it around, and fire it right back at you. Suddenly, you're the one who is selfish. You're the one who is manipulative. You're the one who needs to see a shrink. You came in thinking you were holding up a mirror to them, and you'll walk away feeling like you're the monster. Now, why does confrontation backfire so spectacularly? You have to understand the concept of a narcissistic injury. Remember that fragile house of cards we talked about, that fantasy of perfection and superiority they've built their entire life on. You didn't just criticize them, you took a wrecking ball to their front door. You just poked a sleeping bear with a sharp stick, and now you're surprised it's trying to maul you. Their entire identity depends on them being superior, special, and right. When you challenge that, you threaten their psychological existence. The rage that comes at you isn't just anger, it's pure, undiluted panic. They have to destroy your credibility to rebuild their own delusion. And that's when the retaliation starts. Your attempt to help, your genuine concern, will be twisted and used against you. Your desire for a healthier relationship will be reframed as an attack. They'll say things like, "Oh, so you've been playing psychologist. You think you're better than me." Or, "You're just trying to psychoanalyze me to make yourself feel superior." They will paint you as the arrogant, judgmental one. Your compassion will be used as evidence of your cruelty. But it gets worse. This is the part you really need to get. From that moment on, any information you have given them about narcissism becomes ammunition. It becomes a weapon they will use against you with surgical precision. Did you show them an article about gaslighting? Well, get ready. The next time you disagree with them, they'll look at you with a smug, pitying look and say, "See, you're gaslighting me right now. You're trying to make me doubt my own reality." They will learn the vocabulary of psychology not for insight, but for manipulation. They will use terms like projection, boundaries, and love bombing to describe your behavior, further cementing their role as the victim and you as the abuser. You thought you were giving them a roadmap to healing. You actually just gave them a new playbook for abuse. I've seen this go wrong in so many ways. I'm thinking of a woman, let's call her Sarah, who was married to a classic narcissist for 15 years. She finally got the courage to print out a checklist of narcissistic traits and asked her husband to look at it with her. She thought it would be a wake-up call. Instead, he laughed in her face, took the list, and for the next year, every time she expressed a need or an opinion, he'd sarcastically say, "Oh, is that on your little list of crazy? Are we checking off another box today?" He turned her desperate plea for help into a running joke at her expense. Or the family that tried to stage an intervention for their narcissistic father. They all sat down, shared their feelings, and talked about how his behavior had hurt them. By the end of it, he was the one in tears, talking about how he couldn't believe his own children would gang up on him and attack him like this. He completely reversed the narrative until some of the family members were actually apologizing to him. It was a masterclass in manipulation. So what's the better strategy? It's simple and it's hard. You have to let go of the fantasy that you can make them see it. You have to accept that your job isn't to fix them or diagnose them or make them self-aware. Your job is to keep yourself safe. You protect yourself based on their behavior, not on their level of insight. Whether they know they're a narcissist or not is irrelevant. The abuse is still abuse. The manipulation is still manipulation. Listen to me if you are at the point where you feel the need to sit someone down and tell them they are a narcissist. You are already in too deep. You are already exhausted, wounded, and desperate. Stop focusing on their internal world and start focusing on your own. The cost of trying to change them is your own mental health, your peace, and your well-being. The benefit of protecting yourself is getting your life back. It's a simple choice, but it's not an easy one. You have to choose you. But here's what's really interesting, and it's a question I get all the time. What if they're the one who says it first? What if the narcissist actually wants to change? Is there hope then? Or is it just another manipulation? That's a complicated one, and we're going to untangle it next. All right, so you've avoided the confrontation trap. You've accepted that you can't force them to see the truth. But then something unexpected happens. The narcissist in your life comes to you tail between their legs and says the words you've been dreaming of hearing. You were right. I've been a jerk. I think I might be a narcissist, and I want to change. The clouds part. The angels sing. You feel a surge of relief so powerful it could knock you off your feet. Finally, the breakthrough you've been praying for. But I'm going to tell you right now, hold on. Do not pop the champagne. Do not let your guard down. Do not plan the victory parade just yet, because you have just walked into the most subtle and dangerous trap of all the hope trap. The first question you have to ask yourself, and you need to be brutally honest here, is about their motivation. You have to look past the words and ask why now. What is motivating this sudden desire for change? Is it a genuine, soul-searching moment of self-awareness? Or is it a desperate reaction to consequences? Let me tell you, 99 times out of 100, it's about consequences. They're not motivated by a newfound empathy for the pain they've caused you. They're motivated by the fact that you're finally packing your bags. They're motivated by the threat of divorce, the loss of a job, the public humiliation, or the fact that their children are no longer speaking to them. They haven't had a change of heart, they've had a change in circumstances. They've realized their behavior is no longer working for them, and their desire to change is a panic, last-ditch effort to stop the bleeding and regain control of the situation and of you. So they agree to go to therapy, and you think, this is it, but you have to understand the challenge a narcissist faces in therapy. It is a monumental, almost impossible task. They are fighting against their own core programming, the very wiring that has defined them their entire life. And what's the change paradox they run into? To genuinely change, they have to admit they are deeply flawed. They have to sit in a room and acknowledge their selfishness, their lack of empathy, their manipulative tendencies. But that very admission destroys the fantasy of perfection that their sense of self is built on. It's like asking someone to tear down their own house, brick by brick, while they are still living inside it. It is terrifying for them, and most of them simply can't do it. So what do instead? They perform. They put on the greatest performance of their lives, and you have a front row seat. You need to be on high alert for the warning signs of fake change. First, listen for the therapy language. They'll start using all the right words. They'll talk about their triggers, their childhood wounds, and their attachment style. But listen closely. Are they using these words to express genuine vulnerability and insight, or are they using them as a new way to manipulate? When they say, I need to set a boundary with you, does it mean they are protecting their mental health, or does it mean, I need you to stop calling me out on my bad behavior? When they say, I'm working on myself, does it mean they are doing the hard work of introspection? Or does it mean I'm going to therapy once a week, so you have to forgive everything I do? They learn to use the language of recovery as a shield to hide behind. Second, watch for performative self-awareness versus genuine change. Performative change is loud. It needs an audience. It's them making a big show of telling everyone how much they're growing and how much they've learned. They'll post inspirational quotes on social media. They'll tell all your friends how much therapy is helping them. They want applause for their efforts. Genuine change is the opposite. Real change is quiet. It's humble. It's consistent. It doesn't need an audience because it's not about getting credit. It's about doing the work. It's not about what they say. It's about what they do day in and day out when no one is watching. It's the small, consistent actions, listening without interrupting, apologizing without making excuses, considering your feelings before they act. Real change is visible in their behavior, not in their vocabulary. Even if they seem to be making progress, you have to be prepared for the relapse pattern. Change is not a straight line for anyone, but for a narcissist, it's especially precarious. They might do great for a while when things are calm and they feel in control. But the moment stress hits, they lose a client, they get into an argument, they feel criticized, they will almost always revert to their old programming. Their narcissistic traits are their default setting, their psychological comfort zone, and it's where they will retreat when the pressure is on. So what is your role in all of this? This is the most important part. Your role is to do nothing. You heard me. You cannot love them into changing. You cannot therapy them into changing. You cannot fix them. You cannot rescue them, and you cannot save them. You are not their therapist, and you are not their savior. Trying to manage their recovery is not your job. It is way above your pay grade. Your only job is to protect yourself. And that means you do not lower your boundaries just because they are trying. Their change is not a free pass to go back to the way things were. Trust is not rebuilt with promises. It is rebuilt with consistent, trustworthy actions over a long period of time. You need to keep your guard up. You need to watch their actions, not their words. And you need to be prepared for the performance to end and the old patterns to re-emerge. Hope is a powerful thing, but in a relationship with a narcissist, it can be a dangerous drug. It can keep you stuck in a cycle of abuse for years. You have to be willing to see the reality of the situation, not the potential you wish were there. So where does this leave you? If you can't confront them and you can't fix them, what on earth are you supposed to do? It all comes down to one thing: protecting yourself, regardless of what's going on in their head. And that's what we'll cover next. All right, we've been on a journey. We've gone deep into the minds of the clueless, the calculating, and the conflicted narcissist. We've talked about confrontation, and we've talked about the false hope of change. But now we need to talk about the bottom line. And I mean the real bottom line, the only thing that truly matters when all is said and done, and it's this: it doesn't matter if they know. I want you to let that sink in for a minute. It does not matter if they know they are a narcissist, if they don't know, if they're in denial, or if they're proud of it. Because whether they are clueless, self-aware, or fighting their own demons, the impact on you is the same. The pain is the same. The manipulation is the same. The chaos is the same. You don't need them to have a moment of insight for you, to have a lifetime of protection. Your strategy does not change based on their level of self-awareness. You protect yourself based on their behavior, not their supposed level of insight. You set boundaries based on what they do, not why you think they do it. This is where so many people get trapped. I call it the insight trap. You get caught up in the why. You spend countless hours trying to figure them out, thinking, if they could just understand how much they're hurting me, they would stop. You're hoping that if they just understood, they'd change. But you have to get this through your head. Understanding does not equal caring. They can have all the insight in the world, but if they lack the empathy to care about your pain, that insight is worthless. Stop playing psychologist and start acting like your own bodyguard. So, what are the practical protection strategies? First, you document everything. I'm not kidding. Get a journal, send emails to yourself. Save screenshots of text messages. When you're living in a fog of gaslighting, having a written record of what actually happened is your anchor to reality. It's not about gathering evidence to use against them in a fight. It's about preserving your own sanity so you don't start believing their twisted version of events. Second, stop trying to reason with them. Stop the long, tearful explanations. Stop trying to get them to see your point of view. It's like trying to teach a pig to sing. It wastes your time and it annoys the pig. You cannot use logic to reason with someone who is fundamentally illogical. When you need to communicate, be brief, be factual, and be firm. This is where a technique like the gray rock method comes in. When you can't go no contact, maybe you have kids together or work with them, you make yourself as boring as a gray rock. You give short, uninteresting answers. You don't share personal information. You don't show emotion. You make yourself a boring, unfulfilling target, and eventually they will go look for their supply of drama and attention somewhere else. Now, let's talk about the guilt, because I know you feel it. You might feel guilty setting boundaries with someone who doesn't know any better. You might think it's not their fault, they're just clueless. Let me be crystal clear, ignorance is not an excuse for abuse. Having a personality disorder is an explanation, not a permission slip. A child who doesn't know better might accidentally break a vase. An adult who consistently manipulates, demeans, and hurts you is responsible for their actions, whether they have a diagnosis or not. You are not required to set yourself on fire to keep them warm. And what about hope? When is it okay to hold out hope for change? I'm going to be straight with you, almost never. In very, very rare cases, with years of intensive specialized therapy and a long, consistent track record of changed behavior, maybe. But hope is not a strategy. Protection is. You cannot build your future on the million to one shot that they will fundamentally change who they are. You have to build your future on the one thing you can control, your own choices and your own actions. And that brings us to your recovery journey. It's time to turn the focus away from them and put it squarely on you. Stop spending your energy trying to figure them out and start investing that energy in healing yourself. You can't control their insight, but you can control your response. You can't make them go to therapy, but you can go yourself. You can learn to rebuild your self-esteem. You can learn to trust your own instincts again. You can rediscover who you were before they came along and dimmed your light. This is the ultimate empowerment message. You do not need them to validate your reality. You do not need them to admit they are a narcissist for you to know the truth of what you experienced. You don't need their apology to heal, and you don't need their permission to move on. Your reality is valid because you lived it. Your pain is real because you felt it, and your healing is your responsibility and yours alone. So I'm calling you to action. If you've been through this, share your experiences in the comments. But more importantly, share your protection strategies. What worked for you? How did you set boundaries? How did you get safe? Help others by telling them what worked for you. Your story could be the lifeline someone else needs to pull themselves out of the fog. I want to close with this. Remember, you are not responsible for their self-awareness. You are responsible for your own well-being. Their journey is their own. Your journey is about you. I appreciate you spending this time with me, learning about this difficult topic. Have a strong week, and never forget your protection matters more than their insight.